So, here we are, week 3,213 of lockdown, or so it seems. We're going to come into meditation seat as we come towards our practice of soul-soothing yin today. And as I was just explaining, sitting up on something, you want to have ideally your hip flexors elevated over the knees, and then when there's a knee off the earth, supporting that knee, maybe supporting both knees, especially if there's any injuries in the body. Okay, and then I like to have a blanket just to support my ankles. And from here, just taking a moment and closing the eyes. And I'm going to ask for you to take 5 deep rounds of breath. So simply 5 inhalations and exhalations, which is a really simple practice I love to use. I use often just as a way of checking in, resetting the nervous system. And from that place, the eyes can just flicker open so you can see once again. I'm just going to demonstrate the breath that we're going to begin with. B breath. We practiced this in the last session, and the reason I'm bringing it in is because it's such a great nervous system calmer. So really good for just settling any of the agitations of the energy in the nervous system. It can feel a bit strange to practice in the beginning. So I'm going to demonstrate first of all. We're going to use a very simple mudra. Mudras are positions of our hands, our fingers, creating these kind of energetic shapes in our hands. And we're going to create a B sound. So if you imagine for a moment the sound of a bee, you might even practice the bzzz, and bring your hand to your throat as you do that. So that's the B sound. And now we're going to create it with the mouth closed, so the sound comes more to the back of the throat, and the sound becomes more like a hung, like an HNG, hung. And I can really feel this in the back of my throat. Okay, so maybe let's just practice that once together, just exploring this sound. Hung. And depending on what you may feel, that sound can become a reflection of that. So it might become more of a hung. Finding a pitch that feels like a suitable expression of your energy today. Okay. And just to couple with this sound, we're going to very gently close the eyes and the ears with the fingers. So 2 fingers over the eyes to gently close, and the ears gently sealed with the thumbs. And what we're going to do is take 5 rounds of this breath. So you don't need to wait for me. I'm going to take the breath, and my breath normally is quite long, so you'll be able to follow with me, but follow the natural inhalation and exhalation of your breath, okay? For 5 rounds. All right, so all together, bringing fingers onto eyes, bringing thumbs to the ears, and we begin. Following the inhale. Hung. If you've arrived at the end of those 5 breaths, just taking a moment to check in, to notice any shifts in the inner space, to notice what is here now. This pratyahara, the turning inwards of the senses. Keeping the eyes closed, taking an inhale, and as you exhale, turn your head towards your right shoulder and let the eyes also look to the right, even though the eyes remain closed. At the end of the exhale, inhale here and exhale. Inhale, center. And exhale, opposite side, gaze to the left shoulder, eyes follow. Inhale, exhale. Inhale, center. Exhale, head rest back. Inhale, exhale. Inhale, center. Exhale, chin to chest. Inhale, exhale. Inhale, center. And we flow again. Exhale, gaze to the right. Inhale and exhale there. Inhale, center. Exhale, left. Inhale and exhale. Inhale, center. Head rest back. Inhale and exhale. Inhale, center. Exhale, chin to chest. Inhale and exhale. Inhale, center. And one last round at your own pace. Slow it down to the whole length of the breath accounts for each movement. Allow the eyes to follow in the direction that the head turns, and to remain gazing in the direction, whichever direction the head is facing. And when you find your way back to center, simply pausing and again a check-in and noticing, how is it now? Where is the awareness? Can we bring it into the experience of this moment? Physical body, emotional body, energetic body. How is it now? And today, the intention of the practice is one of simply being. It's a practice of deep rest, a practice that demands nothing of you, and that holds the intention to calm the whole system, to settle the ripples upon the surface of the water. So if you are going to be listening to music in the practice, I invite you now to slowly press play, finding your way. You don't have to slowly press play, but slowly moving to press play. And for the rest, we're going to come into a butterfly pose, taking the soles of the feet together. And again, it might be from here that the knees are supported. Take the feet slightly further away from you than you perhaps normally practice with. And then from here, let's just take some moments. We don't need to rush. You know how I love a spinal twist, a spinal dance. So just the eyes can remain soft and gentle. This is how my body wants to move. How does your body want to move to release from whatever the day has held for you? And then from this place, in your own time, in your own way, transition towards a butterfly pose, a forward fold. And from here, you can find your edge. So the edge is a place where we start efforting, and just come slightly away from that. Move slightly away. The hands can be cradled in the soles of the feet. The head can gently rest if there's nothing going on with your neck. If that doesn't feel optimal for your neck, then you can keep the chest slightly lifted. And you might also, if you're really protecting the body, you might keep gentle movements throughout this pose. So some of you, it might be more of a steady releasing. Others, there might be the chest gently lifting. And others, there might be just small pulsations of movement. It might be all three of these at different stages in the pose. But the eyes can soften. And once you've found the edge and gently eased away from the edge, we're going to start exploring different anchors to draw us into the present moment, just as we do in our meditation practice. We're going to bring that into the practice of embodiment in this moment, in this body. And so for the duration of this pose, I'd love for you to scan through your body and just notice what is here, what can be felt. There's no narrative. We don't need to understand why we feel this way or what's going on. A simple curiosity. And to begin, you might just get a sense of the space that you inhabit. So just for a moment, you might open your eyes and look around and just become very aware of the space, the room that you're in. And then from there, gazing to the body and noticing this shape of the body. And then the eyes can perhaps close, and maybe you start at your feet and work your way up. Maybe you are drawn straight to a particular sensation in the body. Bringing the attention and resting the inner gaze upon whatever sensations can be felt, can be tuned into. And you might find that when you spend some time really becoming curious about one sensation, that the form gently dissolves, shifts, and the attention can move to the next experience, the next sensation that is available in this moment. When the mind wanders, a simple acknowledgement, thinking and noticing the fluctuations of the mind, and then a return to that which is here now, guided through the body again and again into presence. Ever so gently begin to flow, rippling through the spine, as if the spine were dancing, rippling, rippling, and allowing that rippling to elevate you eventually to a seated position. You might remove any props from beneath the legs to take the legs out, extending into a V. If this feels challenging, again, remembering you can be seated up upon something. Know that you can also always have blankets or bricks underneath the knees to take the pressure off. And then from here, again, a little dance, a flow, until eventually the right elbow can come to rest on the right thigh. Then you can simply rest your head. It might be that this is enough repose. It might be the arm can extend up and over, or actually rest on the back of the head, because that way you still get the opening through the side body here. Okay, so just finding that, and you might just feel this contraction curling in and this expansion for a moment, to have a sense of where you can find the edge of the pose, and then pause. Pause at your edge, move slightly away from it, and then allow the settling to occur. The eyes can close. And for our attention now moving the anchor of our attention towards our senses. So now perhaps becoming aware of sounds in the distance. Sounds coming closer. At any point it becomes too much for the shoulder, you can simply rest that hand on the thigh. And then finding your way naturally through your own senses. What can be heard? What can be smelt? What can be felt, tasted, seen? Know that you can always have a bolster to support you in this pose. And again, when the mind wanders, when thoughts arise, when the narrative takes us away from this present moment, just noticing and naming it, thinking, thinking, thinking. Understand that the mind, with its many thoughts, is a functioning, protective part of us. And so when we name that thinking, we could even perhaps name thank you. So it's not a pushing away, it's an honoring of the thought. It's a recognition that it's there. Thank you. And then allowing ourselves to come back to this anchor of the sense, of the body, of what is here now. In your own time, gently begin to rise and flow yourself over the opposite way. If there's a lot of space, there's also the option to come down to bring the arm to the inside of the leg. Quite nice, this resting position though, this feeling of support. Again, the senses, what can you feel? This side stretch, deep connection into the lungs, the ribs. Awareness of inviting space for the breath. Nothing to do, nowhere to be. Just this is enough. Gently, ever so gently rise. And just allow yourself some circling through the spine. Any shapes that feel frankly delicious in your body. The more I practice myself, the more I explore these somatic embodiment practices, the more the poses themselves feel like gateways. They're an invitation for where we begin, but the curiosity is when we surrender into listening and allow the body to guide us in the forms that it desires. So each of the poses becomes the skeleton of the shape, and then we fill it in with our experience of what the body wants, needs, desires, and the way it expresses itself in that moment. Gently rise, and then you might help one leg and the other. I always like this idea of helping my limbs. And again, some of you might find it helpful to sit up upon something. Most of us are probably still seated on our props, and having this sense of the sacrum being able to roll forwards here, so we're not feeling that slump in the shoulders, but rather a lifting up. And then from here we can ease our way, just noticing. It's a really lovely way of staying safe in the body as well, the not rushing, the kind of reaching with fluidity and seeing where we arrive. And from there, the head might gently roll forwards. You can shake it no, nod it yes as you ease forwards to check that feels safe with the neck. Otherwise, keep the chest slightly lifted. Otherwise, keep some gentle movements in the pose, finding your way into a forward bend. If you're keeping the back really safe, then you might want to take a bolster under the knees to take all the pressure off the back. Okay, so especially if there's anything going on in the discs in the back, just removing the pressure. And actually, if you feel somewhat restricted in the forward fold, you might also take this, because it allows this surrendering without the pressure. And we're going to be here for about the next 5 minutes, and it might be that there are moments when you feel a release in the body and a settling deeper. It might be as the pose goes on, there's a resistance. Try not to come completely out of the pose unless you need to do so to stay safe in your body. Instead, just edge slightly back, or perhaps find more props to support you. This attuning into what you can do to honor yourself, to care for yourself. Now bring your attention to the breath as it enters and leaves the body, perhaps through the nostrils. And this curiosity of what the experience might be like of the breath as it enters, as it leaves, the temperature, the sensations, where the breath journeys in the body. Becoming deeply curious about this endless journey of the breath. The first action we'll ever take will be our inhale, and the last will be our exhale. And life is what happens in the space between the first inhale and the final exhale. Let's pause. You might just bring in the counting recognition of the breath and breathing in and breathing out. Inhale in, exhaling out. Where is the mind? Where is the attention? Notice, thank it if it's processing, wondering, understanding its intention of good. And then return to that which is here. In a way, it's as if the thought doesn't even need to go. It's as if it's in the background whilst your attention is sharply, fully upon what is here now. The fluctuations of the breath, inhale, exhale. Ever so gently, ever so slowly. It's really important to come out of the pose very slowly. You've been hanging in your spine. Begin to lift. Slow motion. And when you find yourself upright, bring the hands behind you, lean back, eyes closed, and just notice what it's like to release from the pose. And from here, you might turn the palms to face forwards. So the palms are facing towards the heels and the toes can point, and very slowly begin to lift up through the heart and activate the legs. And find yourself reversing. Like a wave, you can lower yourself to the earth, curling, chin in towards the chest. Inhale, heart rises once again. As you come in, feeling that curling, chin into chest, shoulders rounding. And then once again, lift, opening, this contraction, expansion. Bottoms to the earth. Cross the legs and roll forwards. Find the toes tucked. And then from there, walk your feet up towards your hands back towards your feet. Keep the feet hip distance apart at least. Bend the knees. And then take hold of opposite hands and opposite elbows. And let's just take a moment to sway there. If you're keeping the back safe, keep the knees deeply bent, keep the belly on the thighs. Only go as far as feels okay for you. Otherwise, you can start to straighten without locking and find your way into this ragdoll. And depending on your openness in the pose, you might stay with hands to elbows. Otherwise, it might serve you to simply bring the hands to the earth and then let the head rest forwards. So we're just ragdolling here. So either options, knees bent to support the belly, but in a way that is supported. Otherwise, fully ragdolling. For some of you, depending on the props you have available, you might even be able to prop yourself here for the proper yummy. Make sure that you don't lock your knees. Like so. See if you can feel a sense of pulsation in the body, a sense of vibration, subtle. Sometimes we have these more visible actions of contraction, expansion, and sometimes more subtle, small adjustments, movements. I like to think of it like a flower, the way a flower turns towards the sun. Almost the same intention in our bodies. Bend the knees deeply and gently, very slowly roll to stand. And then curl back down once again. And rising. And curling. Hands can come to the earth as you start to walk them forwards and find your way into a downward dog. Walking the dog, one foot, heel to the earth, the opposite knee bends. And then the other leg, the heel extends to the earth, opposite knee bends. You won't be here for long, just as a place to transition. As you inhale, the right leg extends back behind you. And now we're going to come in towards a pigeon, a sleeping swan. So the right knee is going to come up towards the right wrist. And the right ankle is going to come up towards the left wrist. Okay? So if your right hip is lifted off the earth, I really suggest supporting it with something. I'll turn around so you can see that. Oops, not like that. And if you've got anything going on in your knee, any pain in your knee, then just come away from this pose. And I'm going to offer you an alternative. But for those that are okay here, you can lower yourself down. Check that that right hip isn't collapsing. So you can scooch up any support. And then from here, you can bring hands to support you. Otherwise, if you have a bolster, bring the bolster up so your belly comes to lie upon it. You can rest on the side of the head, and this is pretty yummy. So a bolster or a pillow or cushions so your body is supported. So find your way to that. If you're keeping knees safe, you might again want to have a bolster or bricks ready to support you. You can bend the knees and cross the right ankle over the left thigh. And to have more of a yin version, you can do it like this with the foot, the left foot on the bolster. That creates a little bit of stretch. Otherwise, you can make it a little bit deeper by holding the back of the thigh. Keep that right foot really flexed and keep the ankle in alignment with the knee. And then settle in. Again, you might explore the microcosm and the macrocosm of movement, of vibration, of pulsation. What does that look like if we find fluidity in the body? What does it look like if we take that awareness into a deeper, more intimate, subtle awareness? And these anchors that we have explored, the body, the senses, the breath, all remain available to continually guide us back to what is here now. Ever so gently rise, the hands walking the body upright and planting the hands to gently untuck the right leg, extending it back behind you in a one-legged downward dog. Rising to downward dog, simply to exit the pose. And then when you find downward dog and both feet can come to rest on the earth, simply let the knees come to the earth, the big toes together, knees wide, into child's pose. Rock yourself forwards to all fours. Tuck toes. A gentle, slow downward dog. And then the left leg extends and reaches through to set up towards pigeon on the opposite side. Taking time to check into your body. Know that, again, you can come in to thread the needle to keep that knee safe. So for me, with my knees, because I injured my knees last year, depending on the day, I'll often do the right leg in forward in pigeon and the left leg in thread the needle. So it's really an attuning. Every time I come onto the mat, my body brings different needs, desires. And so even though there can be familiarity in the poses, which helps us find our way there, once we're there, there's a deep listening. What is needed in this moment, outside of the concept of the pose as we know it. Find that place. And if there's any resistance arising to the pose or within the pose, perhaps in the hips, then noticing and naming. As you inhale, I feel what can be felt. As you exhale, I welcome. Inhale, I feel. Exhale, I welcome. And it might shift from the physical to the emotional. There might be a restlessness that arises in the place of stillness. I feel. I welcome. There's no wrong experience. There's a simple curiosity, a welcoming of everything. What is here now? What is here now? How can I be with it? ever so gently, ever so quietly begin to rise. Begin to rise from the pose. There's no rush. Rising, perhaps through a downward dog, but only as a way to transition to child's pose once again. A wide knee, child's pose, big toes together, knees wide. And as you lie here, imagine a sense of the ocean in your body, gently rocking, caressing you as you ease deeper and deeper into the layers of the cells of your being. Tuning and deep listening. Gently rising from the pose, so that we may find our way to the next pose, more of a restorative pose. If you have a bolster, taking the bolster, it could be pillows, it could be cushions. And if I show you the pose, the twisted reclined pose, so my legs, both knees facing in the same direction, the hips to the short end of the bolster, twisting and lowering, and then the arms in a surrender, and the gaze might be towards the knees. If it feels like a greater opening, and with that I mean without effort, the head might turn away. Take some time to settle. Notice how my hands are simply resting, the palms open. So it's as if every bit of my being is just surrendering. And that surrender is captured in the essence of being held, releasing. And in this pose, I invite you to simply extend your exhalation. So noticing the count of the inhale, and then simply allow the exhale to be longer. So maybe there's an inhale for 3, maybe there's an exhale for up to 6. The eyes, if it feels comfortable, can close. And just for a moment, see if there's anything you believe you could do to make this 5% more comfortable. Maybe you're already as comfortable as feels possible. I personally don't feel like I could sit up now even if I wanted to. I love this pose. Deeply comforting. And from here, gently rising and shifting directions, shifting your position to face in the opposite way. Lowering yourself down, shifting in the opposite direction. And rest. Rest deeply. Your choice in these final moments, you can either stay here in this pose, otherwise you can make your way into Shavasana pose, coming to rest on your back, perhaps with the bolster beneath the knees, palms open to the sky in a surrender, and release. You choose your option, choosing the one that honors the deep nurturing of every cell of your being. Come back to the breath, back to the body. Move fingers and toes and stretch long, long on your mat. In your own time, ever so slowly move, rolling to your side. No rush. And equally gently, carefully, find your way to a seated position. Coming to sit. Hands can come to prayer at the heart. And a final poem, a blessing, the blessing that I shared in our Yoga Nidra, that forms, I guess, the theme for this week, the intention of peace, of rest. So this Gaelic blessing, deep peace of the quiet earth to you, deep peace of the running waves to you, deep peace of the shining stars to you, deep peace of the flowing air to you, deep peace of the infinite air to you. Join me for the sound of an Om to close our practice. Following inhale. Om. 3 Shantis. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Hands in prayer to third eye, to the heart, bow down to the earth. Namaste. I'm going to come close.